So this module is not about me standing up the front telling you how to practice as paramedics. You've got to figure that out largely for yourself. My job is to guide your learning and help you figure out how to be a competent paramedic. We're basically going to discuss a toolbox approach to paramedic practice. So having a whole lot of assessments at your disposal, some of which you'll know already, some of which you'll learn during this module, and then at different stages in your patient assessment you'll be able to pull out a particular tool to use on a patient and figure out, hopefully, what's wrong, but more importantly, what to do about it. The module runs over 13 weeks, and it used to be structured over 13 teaching days. So between now and the end of those 13 weeks, you need to have completed everything on the assessment sheet, the assessment criteria. It's one of the last modules in your program. So it's the last major piece that you'll have to do. In terms of teaching team, I'm the module lead, Matt Perry, for those of you who don't know me. Martin Berry and George Eaton, I'm not sure if you've met both of them yet, but they're new teaching fellows. They work 2 days a week. They'll both be having some face-to-face input and some moderation online. John Newton, Vanessa Smedden, Chris Benson, Helen Gutwell will all be moderating online, and some of them might be contributing to the workshops 2, 3 and 4. One of the things with this module in its current form is that we don't have assessments that are separated from learning activities. So you don't have a written exam, you don't have a 2,500 word essay, you don't have an OSCE. As you go about the process of learning, you'll produce some things that I can then assess. I want to make sure that in delivering this module, that I don't create work simply for the sake of assessment. Okay, so it's very important that when we go through, we look at things with a learning hat on, not I need to do this to get marks. Having been a student myself fairly recently, I know that most people think, okay, how many marks can I get this week, and what can I get away with to make sure I get the marks. But learning and assessments are not two separate things within this module. Okay, so the Moodle site. Under clinical examination, there's module guide. So basically on the front page of U43333, module guide. And then you'll have a table of contents down the left-hand side here. And what we're looking at is the assessment strategy. So what's expected of you during this course? How do you get your marks? How do you pass this course? Well, participation in workshops, of which this is one. There's going to be 4 workshops that are face-to-face sessions. There may be 5. We've got space for a 5th workshop, and it just depends on what the learning needs are in the group as to whether we run the workshop, but you'll be notified in plenty of time to be here or not to be here. So, participation in workshops, 25% of your final grade. So each workshop is worth around about 5% of your final grade. And participation means participation, doesn't mean attendance. Discussion forums, which we'll get onto soon. They're marked out of 5 marks every week. The total marks of all of the discussion forums is worth 50% of your grade. And there's about 8 or 9 weeks of discussion forums. You'll have to do a critique of an assessment, so a clinical assessment that you've done. You'll have to critique that and present it back to the group, and that's worth 25% of your final grade. The final one is core competencies out of the PAD, out of the practice assessment document. Now there's 6 core competencies. Those 6 have to be signed off during the time frame of this course, so over the next 13 weeks. Those 6 core competencies for the second year UCAS students, most of those would have been signed off last year. For the techs, most of those should have been signed off already anyway. So all I need is evidence that they've been signed off. Okay? Now, we'll go through a few things about the individual assessments, and then you can ask me any questions that you like about these as they become a bit more clear. So, the discussion forums. There's a fairly good explanation in your module guide about the discussion forums and how to use them effectively. What we want out of you for the forums is a discussion. Each week you'll get a question online. That question will be presented in a short video presentation of about 10 minutes, and you'll be expected to go away, have a think about the question, have a look at some research, have a look at some journal articles, have a look at some books, and then come back and answer the question. Now, the questions, you might have already guessed if you know me at all, are not going to be straightforward. You're not going to be able to cut and paste from Wikipedia. You're going to actually have to think and have an opinion. That's what we're after. Now, your opinion will differ from your colleague's opinion. Once you've posted the answer, your answer to the question, your colleague will then have a chance to go through and put up a different point of view, to have a proper professional debate. You'll be in groups of about 15. You won't be able to see anyone else's post until you've posted your first one. And then you'll be able to see everyone's. And it's at that stage you can go through and have your debate, have your argument. The first post is marked out of 3. So maximum 3 marks for that first post. Most people will get a 2 out of 3, and some people will get a 3 out of 3. If you get a 2 out of 3, it doesn't mean you've failed for that week. Total of 5 marks, remember? It means that in your subsequent posts, you have to contribute to the discussion enough to pick up an extra couple of marks. So your first post is marked out of 3, and then you pick up 2 extra marks for your subsequent discussion. Does that make sense? Is there any questions on that particular part? Is anyone awake? No, he's awake.
When do we find out what marks are?
Good question. No, you'll find out as you go. So what I expect of the associate lecturers that are marking these forums will be that the forums will be open from Monday through to Sunday night, and then the next one will open Monday and go through to Sunday night. When it closes, the associate lecturers have from Monday to Wednesday to mark and put up those marks, so that you'll have feedback as you go through to know how you're going. So if you didn't do so well on the forums last week, you know you need to lift your game this week. Okay? For anyone that is failing miserably, you'll get an email from myself or one of the associates saying, hey, look, you seem to be struggling. Is there anything I can do to help? And if you're anything like me, when I was a student going through a similar course, I actually got my marks back for the first week and said, oh, I have no idea what I'm doing. I need a lot of help. And I got it. And I'm determined to do that as well. I've been a student in a course run like this, and I've also run a course like this. So I do know from a couple of different perspectives some of the good things and bad things about these discussion forums. I know a little bit about what to avoid and a little bit about how to make it a good learning environment for you. Does that make sense about the marks? Yep. The question was, if you're averaging 2 marks a week, do you have to get 3? No, but if you're averaging 2 marks a week, this makes up half of your grades. So you probably won't pass the course if you're averaging 2 marks a week. So if you completely bomb out 1 week, well, that's life. You can still pass the course. It's not as if you failed it. Okay?
You've got uni Monday, Tuesday.
Yep. The forum question is open on Monday morning, basically. The original plan of this course was to hold face-to-face sessions every Monday, so you've already got Monday aside. So the idea is that your first post is the majority of the work. That's where you do a lot of your reading, you decide on your argument, you decide on what you're going to do. You've got your references, and you post it up. The advice is to get your first post in by at least Wednesday. From then on, it's a case of checking in with the forum every so often and reading what other people have posted and replying. So your first post will be about 300 words, give or take. Your subsequent posts may be a lot shorter, 1 or 2 sentences sometimes. They don't take very long to do, and you can do them anywhere. One of the courses that I ran was in Malaysia with ambulance officers who had previously had a weekend training course to be essentially 999 responders as frontline ambulances with no backup. So we ran a 30-week course, mainly based around this sort of stuff. I had people on that course who had no access to computers. They used their smartphone to do these forums. There was 1 or 2 people who had no English skills, and they still used their smartphones and Google Translate to do these forums. So you can do them from anywhere. As a student, I did 1 discussion week sitting on a beach in Manila, in the Philippines. Sorry?
We have to get 5, well, up to 5
Yeah.
every week.
Yep.
And that's for 13 weeks.
Not for 13 weeks, no, because you've got workshops in between. If I go to the course schedule, you'll see, for those of you who've got good eyesight, you'll see that some weeks are workshops and some weeks have discussion based next to them. So the discussion based weeks are the online forums. The workshops are the face-to-face sessions. So it's not every week for 13 weeks. You have a few weeks in a row of discussion forums broken up with a workshop.
We get an email to tell us if someone's posted in the group.
Yes, yeah. Basically, once you post, you'll automatically be subscribed to that group, and you'll get an email with the forum post. So you don't have to log in to read it; you just can read it. Yep.
Is it completely like necessary, like because obviously we have the network from this new way of learning, that be sort of like it, that's what we're talking about, is there any like reset opportunities or
The question was about reset opportunities and whether or not it's even possible to reset. Well, no, it's not. These forums are a once-off thing. Because of the way the marking works and because of the number of weeks versus the grades that you get, I think they're worth about 3 or 4% of your final grade each week. So if you mess up, you only get, let's say 2 out of 5 for that week. It's not really going to have an overall effect on your final grade. it's going to drop it by a couple of percent. But it's a good indication that the next week you might need to lift your game, and you might need to contact myself or one of the other associates and ask, how do I improve my marks?
Sorry. You set the question.
Yes?
And then our first response, which is average. Any responses make to one another?
Yes. So the first post is your response to my question. Around about 300 words. That's not a strict word limit. So you can do more if you like, you can do less so long as you cover the answer. I suggest that you probably can't answer it in less than 300 words. But it's around about 300 words. And then the other marks are picked up by your discussion in the forum. Yes?
Is it only each other that are going to be commenting on our discussions, or you? So if someone has to comment on your, have to get any extra points, like argue.
Yeah. Yeah. Our job is to facilitate discussion. So if discussion's working well, we'll be reading, but you might not actually see us contributing. And generally, discussions tend to work quite well.
So today we're in the 25th discussion phase, so we're not actually on site.
That's correct. Yeah. So anything that says discussion based, you're not physically in here. Now this is probably going to mess up the lecture recording, but as a bit of an example, when Windows decides to let this load, you won't be able to see the words, and it probably doesn't matter, but this is a discussion forum that I participated in. It was a weird discussion forum. It was a clinical discussion forum about the relevance of Keats' poem, Sans Mercy. I forget the first part of that title. But Keats' poem about a knight who has been struck in battle in the 17th century and is slowly bleeding to death on the battlefield. And our task for that week, our question was, how does this relate to shock in modern medicine? I'm not going to give you anything as abstract as that, don't worry. I chose to completely rewrite Keats's poem. My colleague Rosie chose to rewrite Keats's poem as well. So those two were our first posts. And then later on, Rosie and I had a bit of a discussion about her post and my post. Al Care started to actually have a proper clinical debate instead of a poetic debate. And sorry?
You have a rap back as well as poetry.
Yeah. And then Johnny being Johnny introduced things like meta-analyses and all sorts of other actual academic stuff. So these debates sort of take a bit of a life of their own. Simultaneous.
So after reading that, is it very formal forum, or is it informal? Does it have to be academic or?
Yes and no in answer to your question. Does it have to be academic? Well, yes, in that I want to see evidence. I always want to see evidence. Opinion without evidence is pretty useless. So I want to see evidence, and the way you show evidence in academic work is to reference it. If you use pictures, if you use other people's work, you must reference it. If you don't, that's being academically dishonest, because you're putting that forward as your point of view, as your work, when it's not. Yeah? So if you go off and you find things that you really think, make sense, tell me where you got it from. Please use formal academic referencing. That's part of being at our higher education. Come in, whoever that is.
No, sorry.
Welcome. That's part of being in higher education. If you don't quite know at the time you're doing it how to reference something, at the very least put it in brackets. I got this from. Okay? By now you should know how to do proper academic referencing, but I don't really want that to limit you putting your opinion onto these forums. Okay? I don't want you to have to go away and look up how to reference and let that stop you posting. Still have a question?
Yeah. Can you just talk about deadlines and when we'll know, like the timeframes of when we're expected to post and things like
Sure.
that?
So deadlines, the forums will be open from Monday through to Sunday night. About midnight, if I can figure out how to open these things and close them properly. When it closes, it will disappear from view, so you won't be able to see it. That gives my associates chance to mark, and marks will appear Wednesday. Deadlines for other things. The critique of an assessment will be presented in workshop 4. So we'll get onto that in a minute, but obviously you have to have that done before workshop 4, otherwise you'll have nothing to present.
That will be an essay.
We'll get onto that. It can be.
So is there a new question for a system?
New question for every week, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Every week back to back.
Yes.
That's very
Unless you're in the workshops.
right.
So, it's all... where's me? Did I mention to anyone that I hate Windows? No. It's all in the course schedule, which is on Moodle. Now,
If somebody posts something, and then you're on a shift, you go, I want to replace that with that.
yeah,
Somebody's already replying to it. That's kind of wrong. It's your, I want to write.
yeah.
I don't go, I want
Yeah. Now I don't want people going through these forums and going, yeah, I was going to say that. I was going to say that, because what you'll find is people may have the same view as you, and they may express it in a different way. So if you were going to say it anyway, and say. And what I used to do is I used to write my responses in Word, because the forum, the Moodle reply faces sometimes are not good. So I'd cut and paste through into Moodle, and by the time I did that, there was quite often another response along the same lines as what I was going to do. But you'll find that you get different references, you have different interpretation of those references, so it will be different. I'll be very surprised if it's exactly the same. Over 2 years of doing this as a student, I never got one that was exactly the same. I got quite a few exactly like that. You log on, and you go, oh, that's a good idea, I'll go off and do this, and I'll be the only one doing it, and then you log on the next 20 minutes down the track and someone's already done it. But you can still post, and it still will be different. It still will be unique. It'll be a different perspective. So same answer, different perspective. Yeah. If you just simply go, I agree, that won't get you any marks. If you go, yep, I agree because of this, and you know, you've said that, and I agree generally, but I think it's slightly more like this than that. Yeah? Yeah.
Is there a difference between the deleting
You've got half an hour to edit it,
right.
and then it stays there. Now, if anyone has access to the Flinders University Graduate Diploma of Intensive Care Paramedic forums, and they happen to see my first post in the very first module that I did, to this date I'm embarrassed by it. It was a load of rubbish. So you will do things that are a load of rubbish. People will call you out and say, no, that was just wrong. Now, if you do that, you might get one out of 3 for your first post, and then a bit later on you go, well, okay, that was a load of rubbish, guys. Yeah, I'm a bit embarrassed by that. Now I think this. Then you can pick up an extra 2 marks and still get 3 out of 5 for that week. Okay? So there's another question.
So if you make a mistake, we penalise for grammar mistake?
No. Look, if we can't understand what's being written, then yeah. But you know, I need to, as a lecturer, I need to make allowances for you know, people with disabilities such as dyslexia. I need to make sure that everyone has equal opportunity to express themselves. Grammar and spelling is important in academic writing, so there needs to be some sort of standard. But primarily this is about getting your evidenced opinion, not about academic writing. It's not an essay. So so long as we can understand what you're saying, I'm not concerned by that. Okay?
Two subsequent marks, like after your post, is that, do you pick them up, basically, does it matter if it's from a discussion or initial post or
No.
somebody else's? Or
Anyone's.
It's not like 1 mark for one mark for someone else.
No. Now, what tends to happen is 2 or 3 posts tend to be the focus of that discussion. So I used to get quite annoyed when I would spend a lot of time developing an argument and then no one would comment on it. And everyone would comment on Johnny's because he was very smart and I wasn't so much. So it doesn't matter where the discussion leads so long as you're part of it. Okay? Another friend of mine used to try and generate some interest in his own posts by commenting on them himself. That might work for you. Yeah. So. Yep. Yeah. So there's 2 approaches to this: quantity and quality. A lot of people put you know, I had quite a few students in Malaysia put a whole lot of things on in the hope that something will actually give them, you know, some marks, because they figure if you do, you know, pages and pages worth of things, I might be able to pick out a few marks out of them now. Yeah, that might work for you. You spend a lot of time doing that. The other way of doing it is a few small posts of quality. Spend a lot less time, get the same amount of marks. You have to write a lot of rubbish to have a few good points if you're doing quantity. So you can go both ways. But what we're after is good discussion, good debate, good evidence.
So that's fine. Did you want to reference the list?
The question was, do we need a reference list? If you reference properly under the academic standards, yes, you need a reference list down at the bottom. I would suggest EndNote for this, because it'll do it for you. If you don't know how to use EndNote, that might be one of the questions for someone who's coming along later today, which we'll get to in a minute. EndNote, basically, once you select your reference that you want to put in, we'll properly format it in the text for you and then create your reference list that you can cut and paste through to Moodle. Right, any other questions before we move on to the next one? It is important that you understand how these discussion forums work and how to get the most out of them.
You said it's going to be uploaded in a video. Are you going to put like a transcript of it as well? So
Yes.
you can see it in writing, so you haven't got to try and
Yes.
fully understand.
Yes. Yeah. That's one of the lessons that I learned from being a student. It's very, very annoying to have just a very small question and have to write as the video goes through and pause it. So no, it will be, won't be a word-for-word transcript, but there'll be enough there that after watching the video that you'll have some notes to remind you. Okay? So please access the module guide. I've cut it down from about 150 pages to about 20. So it has actual important information in it. Please access the module guide. It tells you exactly what you need to know to learn and from this course and pass it. So in workshop number 4, you will be, I was going to say asked to present, but probably forced is the right word for that. You'll be presenting a critique of a clinical assessment. So your task will be to go out and choose a clinical assessment that you've done, on a real patient preferably, and then critique that assessment. So figure out what you did, what you could have done better, and what evidence is there for that clinical assessment. The actual question will be posted on Moodle shortly with the assignment brief. You'll be then asked to present it back to your workshop group, and you can present it back in a method of your choosing. This is the scary part. You've actually got to choose what you do for an assessment. Okay? I've suggested 3 ways of presenting. One of them is a demonstration. So, you know, you might get your colleague up and poke and prod and get other people to do the same. One way is a presentation. So standing up here, slides, this is how you do it. And another way is a written journal article. So you don't even have to stand up and talk to a class. If you choose the written article, those will be collated and put together as a journal and given to people to read, and during the workshop we'll have an opportunity to ask you questions based on your article. So you'll still get grilled about it, just like the people standing up front. And if nobody asks questions, then I will. Okay? So the assignment brief will come out in the next couple of weeks for that one. You'll have about 10 weeks to prepare. That's the marking criteria.
You're doing a demonstration. How are you, as you're going along, are you sort of critiquing as you go along, or I can't quite get that in my head how it will work?
It's up to you.
Okay.
So the question was, if you're doing a demonstration, are you critiquing it as you're going along? Well, it's a critique of your own assessment. So you might say, if you're doing an abdominal assessment, I did this, I pushed here, I maybe should have pushed here, because the organ's actually on the other side. Okay? And this is the proper way to do it according to this textbook, and this is the proper way according to that textbook, and this person argues with that person. So you still need to critique your own assessment, you still need to provide evidence for best practice, and you still need to show what you should do as opposed to what you did do. Maybe they're exactly the same, maybe they're not. Sorry? Yeah, time limit, 10 minutes for presentations or demonstrations. Word limit of about 2,500 for the any written pieces. Now, I'm open to any other way of demonstrating the marking criteria to me. If you want to do an interpretive dance, you're more than welcome. Want to write an opera? Go for it. What you have to do though, other than those three, if you want to do something outside of that, you have to come and see me and make sure that it's equal and fair to you and to the rest of the class. Okay? I have no idea how to set up a marking criteria for an opera, but if you want to do it, I'll make it happen. Okay?
Who will we be presenting in front of?
Yeah.
Who are we presenting to?
The question was, who are we presenting to? The presentations, demonstrations and the written piece will be within workshop number 4. So in that workshop you'll be divided into 3 groups, so your peers, your colleagues. One of the reasons why I wanted to do this today is that it may be video recorded. May not be, we'll see. We may have guests come in that want to view these things. Matt Catterall might pop in. Okay, so it'll be within workshop number 4 that we'll do that. Any questions about that assignment? Workshop 4 on the schedule.
11th of April.
That's the one. Yes. The written pieces will have to be in a couple of days beforehand. All of this will be contained in the assignment brief. Yep.
Will that be a different assignment amongst the groups? Is it the same assignment for everybody?
Same assignment. So pick a clinical assessment that you've done and critique it.
So that will be the assignment?
That is the assignment, yes.
We're all getting up individually to do 10 minutes of it?
Yes. Not in one big group, you'll be separated into 3 groups. So a full day workshop.
So you're going to tell us which system then?
No, it's up to you.
Oh, okay. So it won't be the same then.
They'll all be different. So same assignment, but your clinical assessment that you, sorry, I might have misinterpreted your question. The clinical assessment that you pick to critique will be different, hopefully. I'm hoping that we don't get one workshop full of people who do an abdominal assessment and all look at appendicitis as their focus. In the assignment brief, you do have to tell me what you're looking at by, I think it's about workshop 2. So what you intend to look at, it's not a definite, it's an intention, and how you intend to report that back to the group. So that way I can start to plan workshop 4 and say, okay, well, if 5 people are doing abdominal assessment, I'm going to split them over the 3 groups. If 30 people are doing neuro assessment, well then it's going to be an interesting day. Anyway.
Send you an email to what we actually discuss on the day workshop 2.
I'll probably email, but we can discuss it on the day as well. Just email so that we've got a written record. Yeah. But watch for that assignment brief that'll come out in the next couple of weeks. Any other questions? Yeah. I only had to assessment because I've got that on my mind for some reason. So the question was, it can be anything, any assessment contained within this course, and this course covers every assessment under the sun. No other questions on that one? Now, because the workshops are assessed, there is a marking criteria for them. Please be familiar with it. I'm hoping that most people will achieve 5 out of 5 for each and every workshop. It's very broad criteria. So basically, if you're here and you participate, you'll get 5 out of 5. If we notice that you're not participating, you won't. Okay? Any questions on that one? If for some reason you can't make it to a workshop, do contact myself or Martin or George, and we'll discuss with you what happens from then. If you've got a good reason, we're quite flexible, and I've already given a few people an alternate to these workshops because they had good reason.
What can we expect out of workshops? So what we're doing or...
So the question was what we expect out of workshops. Well, they're different because they're to achieve different things. This introductory one, what we're doing today, is about introducing the module, and most importantly, introducing the way you'll work on Moodle. Workshop number 2 is about going over the work that you've done in Moodle and providing some practical application to that work. Number 3 is the same. Number 4, your critique. Number 5, if we run workshop 5, is to cover anything that you're a bit unclear about or issues that have popped up during the course. Okay? Again, in Moodle, on the page that has a course schedule, that's all explained, what the workshops are about. There's a little bit about due dates and late hand-ins and the usual sort of thing on the module guide. That's not the right one. No. That's the right one.
So I know you said not to focus on the pass mark. But what is the pass mark? So out of your 50% online discussion, 20% for the demonstration workshops.
Yep.
As a whole, is it an individual, so a certain grade for each module, or is it?
No, just the entire course as a whole. And usual university rules apply. I think it's 50%. Yeah. 40%? 40. Okay, 40%. So each individual component doesn't have a pass-fail. Each individual component doesn't have a pass-fail for that component. Okay. But the structure is such that if you fail in the individual component, you're going to be at risk of failing the whole module. Okay?
It says here that 84 hours is completed as your practical basis. Is that part of 650?
Yeah. So the question was about practice placement hours. I'll get to that in a minute. What I need to say is that if you're struggling to A, understand the course, B, understand the content, or C, have any other problems whatsoever, talk to us. The people that have come to see me already about not being able to be here for various reasons, if you talk to them, you'll find that we're quite flexible. What we want is for you to have a good understanding of paramedic practice out of this module, of clinical assessment. And if we need to be flexible in the way we deliver this to achieve that, then we will be. There's some rules that we have to comply with, but I'm fairly good at finding my way around rules. So if I can do that to benefit you as a student, I will. Okay? Who knows about upgrade, by the way? Anyone? Anyone heard upgrades? So 2, 3. So not too many people. Yep. So upgrade offers support in things like academic writing, things like trying to figure out what keywords to use to search for things, where to go to for help for various components of your course. It's one of the support services. the library. Has everyone met Vicky? No, hadn't come along and talked to you guys at all? Yep. Okay. So later today we're going to have Vicky from the library and Kevin from Upgrade come along and have a chat about what they can do to help you go through this module. Now in the future those sessions will be held much earlier in the course, and I realise this is fairly late in your progress through this foundation degree. However, it's still an important thing to pass this module, so they're going to come along. Vicky will be talking about some things that are different to the other presentations that she's done to this group, specifically for this module. Okay. One of the things that we're introducing as a program team, I think it's following me. One of the things we're introducing as a program team is talking about student feedback. Now, in a usual module as we present it on the first session, we'll be presenting feedback from the last group and what we've done about it to improve it for the future groups. Feedback from the last group, well, there is none. There's none for a couple of reasons. This module, as most of you will know, has been completely redesigned because it was unworkable from the last way it was run.
What was that?
Well, to give you a bit of a background, the last person to run this module left in about January or February. Then it was sort of in caretaker mode for the current students, and then I picked it up in November, late November. What was unworkable about it? There was no content. I had a schedule and I had a series of PDF documents that used to be PowerPoint presentations given by guest lecturers, most of whom didn't respond to an email that I sent out saying, do you mind if I have your presentations, thank you. So there was no content to it. It was taught over 13 days. 5 days of those were devoted to assessments. There was a 3-hour in-class written exam, there were 2 OSCE exams, 2,500 word essay, and your whole practice assessment document, your whole pad, had to be assessed by this course, as well as by this module, as well as the placement module. When I looked at that, that is not particularly best practice. So what I did is decided, well, okay, I have to either do a lot of work to build this module back up to be able to run it, or we've got a problem, why don't we fix the problem while I'm doing a lot of work anyway? And I've restructured it to make sure that we use the maximum amount of time that we've got together for teaching and not for assessments, that I don't separate learning and assessment activities, which is the university has said that that is best practice, that if you produce something as a result of learning, I should then be able to assess it. And I needed to have some content, which I've got, but just in a different format to the way it was presented. The other issue, of course, is large group. You've always had that problem as you've gone through this year, I know. Lab space is always an issue. What I didn't want to do is split the group, have some people come in the morning, some people come in the afternoon, and do that over 13 Mondays. You'd end up with about, I think it was about 20 hours of actual teaching time out of that 13 weeks, which I thought was too little. Does that make sense? So I got rid of the 3-hour examination, got rid of the 2,500 word essay, got rid of the 2 OSCEs. So if anyone wants a 3-hour examination, I'm more than happy to provide one for you. Any? No? Okay. The focus of the previous module was also on a lot on neurology, and it focused a lot on cranial nerve assessment. And I don't know about you, but as you know, as a paramedic for 10 years, I can't remember the last time I actually did a cranial nerve assessment on a patient. At ECP level, yeah, maybe I'd think about it. but probably not. So it was inappropriate, I think. So rather than deliver inappropriate content in a way that I didn't agree with, it was a redesign. Now, it wasn't easy to redesign it. Certainly wasn't easy. The process for redesigning a module usually takes about 6 months, so I did it in 2 weeks. With a lot of cooperation from people. I needed to go through quality assurance processes. I needed a lot of help from the people who teach me how to teach. And they were more than happy to pitch in once I explained the problem. And that's the short answer to your question. Okay, so I didn't get to the stage where we're partway through the module and have you guys say, no, this is crap. Okay? So I didn't really have to fix anything. But I am interested in what you say about this design. I know it works as a student because I've done it as a student. I know it works as running a course because I've done that as well. But I am interested in your feedback as we go through this course. There's a lot I can change about it as we're doing it. So I'll have some feedback things, usually through Moodle because it's easy. Please fill them in. Please be honest. Please let me know the good things to keep, and please let me know the things that should be changed. And if I can change them during this module, I will. What I won't do is change assessments. I won't change the timetable. I won't move the goalposts for you. Because I think some of you have had about enough of that, haven't you? Okay. The other thing is I couldn't find any student feedback from the previous runs of this course. There were 3 feedback forms filled in for the last 5 years. So I couldn't really base any changes on student feedback because there was none. So, what are we going to do with the rest of today? Well, as everyone's read their module guide, they would have already had the program for today. We've done the introduction to the module. In a few minutes we will be breaking up and going into smaller groups based around your Moodle groups. Groups of about 7, give or take. We'll be talking about the most important skill. And the question that you'll have to answer is, what is the most important skill for paramedics when it comes to patient assessment? What's the skill? Why do you think it's important? What's your evidence? That's the easy part. Slightly harder part is, how do you convince your colleagues that that's the most important skill? How do you help your colleagues improve on what is, in your opinion, the most important skill in paramedic practice? And what's the evidence to say that what you think, how you think you'll help them actually will work? You'll get a bit sick of us asking for evidence, but that's what we're after. Okay? And by evidence I mean research, expert opinion, academic evidence. Does that make sense? Any questions? No? So at about 11:05ish, we're going to have a tutorial. There's 2 people coming, Vicky from the library and Kevin from Upgrade, and they're going to say what they do, how they do it, provide you some useful hints for things like, I don't know, database searching that you might do a fair bit of during the discussion forums. They'll be open to questions and answers, and they'll float around for a few hours after that as well. That's optional. If you think you know that, then feel free not to come. I'll leave it up to the individual groups to decide whether they want to focus on the group activity or come in and do this. There'll be plenty of time for the question during the group activity. So. No, it's a group opinion. Yeah. Each and every one of you will have your own opinions, but the opinion you express will be the group opinion. From about 1:30 onwards, group presentations. So you have to present back to the class. I don't expect, get up and PowerPoint. It can be a discussion-based thing. What I do need is some notes of what you came up with as a group. So by the end of it, I'll need some written notes, one from each group, that I can then take away and use as evidence that people participated. And with those references from the evidence that you've used, I'm going to need those references listed at the end of that. Okay? Does that make sense? When we break up into groups, I'll get one person to let me know their telephone number. There's a few vacant rooms around here that people can use. There's also the area, what's that large area called down by the cafe? Forum. What? Yeah, near Starbucks. Apparently it's quite funny for some reason. The bar, yeah. That might help actually. There's a large area down there near Starbucks. Apparently there's also a bar. You can find me in the bar. No. Yeah. There's a few spaces around this campus that you can use. I specifically came up here because of two things. There's the library, handy, and there's a lot of individual spaces that you can use as groups. So long as I've got your contact number and can call you up and say, where are you? I don't mind where you go on this campus. Yeah, a couple of hours. Back in this room by 1:30. If all else fails, come back here by 1:30. Make sure you have your lunch. I'll find out where you are, where your group's going to be based, and I'll come and visit, see how you're going. There'll be other associate lecturers come and visit. Vicky and Kevin will be floating around to come and visit and see how things are. And then you'll come back here for 1:30 and present back to the group. And then we'll do a bit of a wrap-up after that, and hopefully you'll be on your way around 4 o'clock, maybe before, depending on how we go. Does that make sense? Tough?
One more quick question.
Yeah.
The notes and the references that we do in our group to hand over evidence,
Yep.
do they need to be notes then?
Collective group, so
Just email you.
yeah, that's probably easiest, or USB and I can put it onto my computer, but email is probably easiest. Or if some people prefer paper, if you really prefer paper or stone tablet and chisel, that's fine. I'll take a photo of it and upload it. Any other questions apart from who's in what group, because I'm getting to that? No?